The moment I stopped being a good man and started becoming an effective one, life changed. In my formative years, since the very beginning, I used to be a really jolly guy. I still am. You see me with a smile on my face, you'll be like, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? All the things, right? And being a good man could mean as simple as leaving the door open, not just for women, but for men too. Or maybe, hey, leaving the elevator door open, or like, just doing the right thing, right? But the truth is, I always wanted to be everyone's friend, right? And then later in life, you realize, okay, everyone's just different. So it's not your fault you can't be their friend. It's just the world is such. But before that conclusion, I wanted to be, all right, the number one ethics, the number one societal right thing to do, because then, selfishly, people would be like, wow, what a nice guy, what a nice gentleman, what a good person. And all these things, like, that's great. But the truth is what? The truth is, there's nothing of value that really creates other than in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with spreading the joy in the moment, right? But when it comes to a counterparty, in other words, the other side, if there was a transaction, right, it's pretty much a one-way street. It's me basically being the good guy and me adding value to that other person's day, whether I know them or not. And it's good to put good vibes out into the ether and into the universe. It all comes back, right? Karmatically and otherwise, you can say, right? Put one good deed out there, it's going to come back to you at some point in the future. Yet, the fact is what? You have nothing to show for it. You can be the number one volunteer, the number one social service individual, and the audience, people, they may applaud, right? But being a good guy versus basically really being effective for somebody, right? If there's value on the other side, that will never come to you because that moment was you just being good like a favor, right? But are you really effectively, right, producing something of value, whether that's for more than yourself, for another human, for someone on the other side, whether you call that through a job, whether you call that through your own business, right? How effective are you day to day? The point being, I realized that me just being smiling, being all dandy and friends with everyone, like that's great. But the truth is, no one really respects you. No one really remembers you where, okay, they want to use you again for a favor. Oh, easily. They may hit you up because they're like, this guy's probably going to do it. And whether they're taking advantage of you or not is a secondary thing. It's more that you're open to spending your time once more. It's kind of like the business philosophy of donations, where when I got to know this, my mind was blown. But when you think about it for a second, it makes total sense. The people that are most likely to donate are the folks that had already donated. Now, think about some organization, right, collecting donations. After your first few donations come in, whenever, however long that period of time was, basically the people who get a call back, the first people who get called for more donations, are the same people that already donated because they chose to donate in the first place. It's kind of like sales. What they say, kind of like if you know someone's a salesman, don't talk too much. Because basically, a real salesman is not going to try to convince you to buy something. Like, that's selling you something, but a real salesman who gets the job done, who converts, who closes, right? It's about marrying the gap, right? Or bridging the gap, closing it, whatever word you want to use, right? Of saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, this is the value that you are seeking out, and this product or service offers line item number A that you wanted, with the features that you wanted with B, with whatever extra bells and whistles that comes with line number or item C. And so in the end, it's basically giving you the value because they're selling you, sure, but they're giving you a solution for a problem. Very straightforward, right? So coming back, right? We have donations, the person who did it already. Being the good guy, someone's going to ask you again for a favor. When you're effective, though, everything changes. Think about a job, right? A job that you do, maybe you have a team member, maybe you have a little team, right? And in this kind of environment, you can be the nicest guy, and I've been there. Morning, I get coffee, maybe an extra cup. Hey, Mr. Whoever, hey, you want a cup of coffee? Hey, I got an extra cup of water. And, like, I'm a nice guy, right? It's all cool. But when you're there to do the work, the task at hand, the goal that you all have, which one is it better to be? Is it good to be the cheerleader, the mascot? That's great, but you're not getting anything done. Or is it better to be the person who, all else equal, right? You're not like an asshole, or you're not, slowing down work, but you just help with maybe even 5% of the work, maybe 10%. What happens is then you become really a part of the team because you're not cheering the team on, right? Think about sports where there's a cheerleader team and then the actual sports players. You have now, you're a part of the team that's executing. And that's the difference. Humans are basically very two-faced type of individuals. We're very hypocritical, where one person may complain about the work, right? But that same person in a team structure will do the work with the team all dandy, and then later still go complain about it as if tomorrow's not going to come, or they don't want to switch their job, and they'll just live complaining, right? But they'll still be maybe happy with the resources, aka money, that they're earning from the job and doing with that which whatever they please. So when you're effective, you gain respect. And when you're effective, more than respect, you gain trust. And if you gain trust, then you have the capability, the power, not just to influence, let's say, one other person that now trusts you. Maybe that person trusts, another person, and they have a mutual trust, and then you're now, it's basically like friendship or networking. It's all the same kind of world, right? Where everything really is connected. But you can choose, do I want to be, that person who's on the highway, maybe, hi, hello, waving to everybody on the side of the highway, which I know no one really does that, right? But if you see those signs like, hey, honk, to support whatever cause, like that's people on the sidelines who are not a part of the cause, but just kind of, oh yeah, we're cheering on, and that's great. But in the end of the day, you can be the nicest person, the most whatever, right? But if you are not effective, no one will take you seriously. And if they don't take you seriously, then that means you're not effective to them. So it goes both ways. Because me staying the good person that I just used to be, and I still have the qualities, right? But a lot of things are a waste of time. You realize, like, doing favors for just people you especially don't know, like, it's good to be nice versus naive. There's a small but big difference, right? There's helping the old granny with her bag of groceries because, whatever reason, right? Whether it's a kindness of your heart, or maybe it's, okay, I understand how it is to get older and imagine, like how much this could be an issue, and karmatically or not, whether it comes back to me, great, but like I'll help because it's out of my own, what I consider fulfillment, day-to-day fulfillment. But for some, there may be a different reason, they may do it or not. And some folks, they're not even good people, and if you talk the inverse of someone who's not even good, then even when they're effective, this is the funny part, when they're effective but they're not a good person, but when they're effective, people still have to give their respect, and they do. And the reason is why. Because as much as they hate to say it, it's usually the person who maybe is doing, stereotypically, not every time, maybe a grunt amount of the work and a percentage amount of the work. So in other words, 60% of the work, maybe it's a lot of grunt work. That person could be, like just moaning and complaining, but in the end they did the work and they're effective. So what that means in our case is basically that even when they're not good, they're getting the respect. And with the respect means what? There's trust. And with trust, we may not want to introduce this individual, but guess what? You can see it in my face and the way we're expressing it. If we need the job done, Gary's the guy. Some guy named Gary, right? Great. And if they're the person, then that is what happens. They're getting that, let's say, a contract extension. Let's say a different contract. Let's say a different opportunity, right? There's so many things from just being effective, because whether you're effective with your personal goals or effective for somebody else, there's still value. In other words, think about me right now making this video. This single video, right, is my own work. I'm being effective in my way where I'm trying to share that, hey, there's value to be had. You can do it. There's nothing stopping you. But understand that if you're a good person like me, or you're a good person yourself, right, like just being good is like, it's great in one way. It's blissful. Ignorance is bliss. But effectiveness, if you have nothing to show for it, then nobody wants to unfortunately talk to you. It's kind of like that expression, a millionaire has, a million problems, but a broke person has only one. They have no money. And what that means in this case is, that broke person may be the nicest, most kind individual ever, but maybe they're not effective. Maybe they're not producing. So they're not getting resources, so they're homeless. And that's why they say, people in the villages, people somewhere where you least expect, like people, I don't know why, where the stereotype comes from, where people are just like, vicious and barbaric and primitive outside and, outside of the world and in certain places. But, people are just like living their life. We're all just human, kind of nice, kind, creatures, you could say, all else equal, unless we need food and water and some necessities, then we go a little extra, and then the world today is that much different. So I went from being a good man when I realized that, hey, none of this, whatever's going on in my day to day, like everyone likes me, they appreciate me, and all the things. But in the end, if they want to transact value with me, dollars, like real, business value, there's not a trust that's really there because that effectiveness hasn't been proven to them potentially, right? And so it's all like that type of give and take where if you know the person, maybe, they already know something about you. But in general, if they don't, they're like, what a nice person. That opens the door to trust more. But if you're just being a nice guy all the time, but you're not doing anything, then you're going nowhere. And so with that regard, this part of this video is sponsored by me, where I basically have stopped being that, just good individual, but have been effective for many years in different industries as an investor. So if you're a fellow investor, basically there's an opportunity where you can have a piece of the pie where imagine there's a Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, these type of hotels. If you want to invest into them and actually own the hotel, own that cash flow, it's literally not possible just, by knocking on someone's door or, making a quick call, right? Including myself. I don't have access to that, right? And so after trying to basically, you start investing stocks, crypto, trying things out, then you're like, all right, let me be a part of different investments. Okay, see how they go. How do they do it? After taking all those learnings, there's basically this, you can call it a product in this case, but what it is a 250 room hotel, right? So this project construction has just started. And what it is essentially investments where they start from 15,000 USD to 3 million USD, just depending on where you're, watching from. The investments are basically 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and these are suites. So we're aiming for 5-star status, but we can't guarantee that. But with that said, you're talking like star facilities. And what it is you also have a profit sharing model. So you can own some, X number of square feet, and you're getting a percentage of, profit sharing once the hotel is open. But here's the kicker, right? For those people that are into the, hey man, I want my money now, like, what can I do, right? So basically the whole feature, right, is that you can actually get cash flow before the construction is completed. So it's kind of a win-win relationship, right? Where 50% plus of equity, in other words, owners of land, we're the same team developing the land to become the hotel, right? So approvals have come in, all the things, and we're in motion. So this is basically saying, okay, if you're investing, right, what happens is you'll own the land, right? But this land is not being developed, so that's appreciation. Then there's a commercial part of this, so then that's further appreciation. So eventually, then you actually have the actual cash flow of the operating model. So then you're getting cash flow month over month. But before then, instead of going to the bank to borrow, I'm basically opening it up to us, saying, hey, I'm happy to give us a similar interest rate to say what instead of the bank, it's basically you're still getting cash flow. You're funding it this way. I can still go to the bank, right? So either which way, but it's a win-win scenario is why I'm opening it up to us here directly on the channel. This is the second channel. There's a main channel where I talk about more financial topics, which makes more sense for why, I'm talking about this. But with all that said, being effective is the key to success because I was being good for way too long and it leads you nowhere. So with all that said, like, share, subscribe, all the things. Thanks for coming to the end. Peace for now. See you in the next one.